It isn't Benning. This is Tim.
This is Jonathan.
This is Bryce.
Yeah, there you go. Get it in there. Yeah. Welcome to night 6 of our 13 Nights of Halloween. This is the cursed episode. We had 6 guests lined up, and it whittled down to the 3 of us, and we're going to have a great time. So tonight, we are joined by founding member Bryce. Welcome back, Bryce.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Yes, sir.
And we are thrilled to dive into one of the most legendary films of all time, John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. This is a true masterclass in tension, practical effects, and body horror, and we can't wait to dissect it. Don't forget to pair this chilling episode with our custom cocktail, designed to match the icy, paranoia-filled vibes of The Thing. Find the full recipe over on our Instagram. We also want you to get involved. Head over to the link in our bio or share your scores in your Instagram stories to tell us what you think of the film. Our goal, to see how The Thing stacks up against the rest of our 13 nights and crown the ultimate horror film. Let's find out which one will reign supreme. So The Thing doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm gonna get into it. It is a masterful blend of sci-fi and horror, directed by the legendary John Carpenter, known for his work on Halloween and Escape from New York. The film is based on John W. Campbell Jr.'s novella, Who Goes There? And it serves as a remake, as we will find out in 6 days, of the 1951 film The Thing from Another World. Set in the icy, desolate landscape of Antarctica, The Thing follows a group of American researchers stationed at an isolated outpost. The crew is thrown into paranoia and terror when they encounter an alien life form capable of assimilating and perfectly imitating any living organism. As the alien infiltrates the team, they can no longer trust one another, unsure of who's human and who's the thing. So let's get into this film. Jonathan, do you want to go first or should I?
You go first. But before we get into it, though, do want to pop out a little shout out to artist Brian Fife from Kansas City. He made this piece as part of the 35th anniversary art book that they put out. I saw this and was like, holy cow, that's amazing. And this dude was like, oh, yeah, I made that because of the movie The Thing. And I was like, that's freaking amazing piece of artwork. Got to have it on my wall. So shout out to Brian Fife. That dude's pretty rad. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, you said I go first. I forgot about that. So I think this story is pretty good. I struggle with this movie because this movie is a classic. It's legendary in the horror community, but I'm going to be upfront and honest. This isn't one of my favorite horror movies. I greatly enjoyed this one, but it's not one of my favorites. But I really appreciate the paranoia in this story, and I think that is where this movie shines. Some of the mystery setup is fantastic, but once they discover that it can look like a human, this movie is fantastic. So it takes about half an hour, and then after that first half an hour, this movie is one of the best examples of paranoia. So we're just coming off of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is another fantastic paranoia film, but it's very similar. I started noticing like this one, the creatures are insane versus Invasion, but it's that same idea of you don't know if you can trust that person next to you. And I love setting it in that isolated Antarctica. It's these 8-ish guys. They can't call for help. They are stuck in their own. I love that. I don't think there's a lot more to this story. Kind of love the space alien aspect of it. There's very few good alien horror films, I would say, on Earth, where I'm not going to count Alien.
Yeah, you won't.
I think sci-fi horror is a tough genre to nail, and this is one of the best examples of sci-fi horror. So for me, I give the story a 4.
Heresy.
That's okay.
I'm kidding.
Not too much.
It is too much of. We did just come off of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which was 4 years before, and so we're snatching bodies. That's pretty similar. So I had to docket that, and it's also a remake, and I have docked just about every remake for being a remake. You can't be 100% original if you are a remake. So therefore, I can't give you a 5. That's just me personally. So, Jonathan, back into it.
I really like the fact that it's set, like you're saying, in Antarctica, in such a remote place with so few people to have involved in the story, and seeing how like one team of similar amount of people at these remote science stations in the middle of nowhere in the Antarctic, it's when they realize like this is an all or nothing situation with dealing with this creature, and that everything has to stop here, otherwise everything is totally effed, makes it super, super hard, and it helps enhance that whole sense of that paranoia that you're talking about. It makes it so much harder to get around when it's like, if we don't end this here, what then? There's nothing left, And if the creature survives through the snow and all the ice and anything, any parts of it, it's like, holy crap. It's so much more like end of all apocalypse kind of situation that I thought that made it really cool as far as concept for the story. So I gave it a 4 as well. All right. The characters, the way they were portrayed, everybody was rocking in it, dude. Like everyone, man, this is such a cool story. I really liked it a lot. So yeah.
All right, Bryce.
So I also was bouncing between 4 and a 5, and I decided to just stop overthinking it and just go 5 out of 5. I can totally understand the 4 out of 5 just because of originality docking it. But every now and then, a movie comes along that doesn't have a super original story, but takes whatever its story is and just owns it the whole way through. I agree with you. I love that we're just in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is just happening all like away from civilization. I like how we don't really know a lot about anything like Tim said, up until like they find out like it can start like mimicking human beings and stuff like that. It's just hard for me to find true flaws in this story outside of just that it's not an original story, like it's a remake of a movie. And again, I totally get docking it for that, but there's just some movies that just like, I think the reason I picked a 5 instead of a 4 was because no one thinks about the first movie. They think about John Carpenter's The Thing when they think about this movie.
No, that's very true. Very true.
So I felt like, okay, I'm just overthinking this. This is a perfect story. There's no, like, this movie would not be as big as it was if it wasn't for John Carpenter remaking it and just making a very, very well, like you said, really well done sci-fi horror. As someone who's a huge fan of the Alien movies, this is like one of the only other ones that I truly can think of that comes close to Alien. And I even like Body Snatchers. I think that remake was pretty good and compared to the first one also. But yeah, I don't overthink this one. A 4 is understandable, but I think honestly a 5 is well deserved as well.
I think you hit on something that I had previously mentioned. not in this episode and other recordings, but when I was putting this out to get people lined up for all the episodes, very few of them knew that The Thing was a remake.
Yeah, exactly.
Most people think of The Thing as John Carpenter. Yeah. See, so that is a fair point. Bryce. I'm just being harsh.
I know. Someone have a movie with myself.
Oh yeah. So this is the one that is toughest for me. The character arc on this one, the journey that they go through. Someone else want to go first? Because maybe you can persuade me to change my score. Because right now my score is low. Because
I could fall on the sword if you wanted me to.
Is the same character at the beginning that he is at the end. So that doesn't mean it's a bad character.
I'll just fall on the sword now because mine's probably the highest of both of yours. And honestly, it's a little bit with some rose-colored glasses. So again, I know that me and Tim have kind of like judged character in the rubric a little differently. I mean, yours tends to lean more on the character arc. Mine tends to lean a little bit more on just the writing of the characters and who they are. So give or take here or there. Grow. Yeah, no, and that's totally fair. And I'll be honest, maybe my 5 out of 5 was a little, too nice.
You gave it a 5?
I did. I just love these characters, man. I just really enjoy the time you spend with these characters. They're all, again, I'm gonna point back to in a lot of my scores on why I love this movie is just simplicity. I like simple things and I like simple characters who may not have this huge storied arc throughout the whole thing, but even though you don't see, maybe you can put this more in the story than you can the characters, but I like watching these characters grow as in the sense of just like they're solving the mystery. They're learning more about each other and more about this monster as they go along. Maybe that's, a bit of a far reach, but the time I just spend with these characters through this movie, 5 is probably too confident. Maybe a 4 would have been a little better. It's a little easier to swallow overall. But like, there's just something about simple characters who have strong and good, well-written personalities. And we'll talk about later, actors who can portray those characters and execute it in such a way that just like, how can you not root for any of these? Even what was it? Was it Dr. Copper, the guy who got locked up? Even that guy, like the one who's going against everyone else and like the biggest threat to them in their eyes, even the ones that are like pushing back against them when they start infighting, like you still can't help but like just be like, oh guys, can we just get along? Like some mom and dad fighting. It's like, like for me, that's like a personal attachment I build to the character. And it's just like, I don't know why. Again, 5 out of 5 is probably too much. I'll say maybe 4 out of 5 was probably the better route to go there.
Are you talking about the doctor that they lock away in the cabin?
Yeah, is it Copper or
it's Blair?
Blair.
Okay,
it's Wilford Brimley. Yeah.
Great character. Honestly,
he really is. He really is. All right, so you helped me a little bit. I'm gonna come up to a 4. I was a 3 because I do like at the beginning. You mentioned how they all like get to know each other a little bit. I'm gonna flip that for me. I like how at the beginning we kind of feel like this close-knit scientist community out here in the Antarctic. And then as soon as the shit hits the fan, they turn on each other.
Yes.
And it is like, you know what? I don't think I know you. I don't think I've ever known you. And they turn on each other so fast. And McCreary maybe is always kind of the leader. Even if he's not technically the leader, he's got that, for lack of a better term, alpha male presence in the movie. He's the one who's taking charge. So he's kind of that way from the beginning to the end, but they turn on him real fast. And then he is not just turning on them, he's trying to narrow it down to who is still real. I love his line about, I'm human, and some of you are too, because if you were all the Thing, you would attack me right now. And I was like, oh, that was a good moment. So
good line.
Yes.
I'm gonna bump
logical
it up.
Reasoning there. It's like, yes, okay, thank you.
Smart writing and smart characters.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm gonna jump it. I'll bring it up to a 4. I was gonna leave it a 3 because I was doing a 3 because I didn't think there was a ton of growth, but like you said, they are well-written characters. They each have their unique roles. My heart went out to the character I cared about was the one who was responsible for the Huskies. That guy,
Yes. Clark.
that guy. Oh, that's a rough storyline for me, man.
Man, this must have been a hard movie for you to watch then.
It was when those dogs turned, and then you find out that Blair killed all the dogs, and that guy just drops what he is doing and runs back to his dogs. I was like, oh, I feel that.
Feels bad, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll come up to a 4 because that you don't grow in a positive way in this movie, but it's that lack of trust and paranoia that we talked about. I mean, literally the episode that came out yesterday, we talk about Invasion of the Body Snatchers and how it goes from a big circle of people that you can trust to narrowing down to one. And this movie, it's a very similar format of dwindling characters to the end.
Right.
And so
exactly.
I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4.
And I was even going to say, like, we spoke about it earlier. A good comparison to make is Alien, and it's kind of the same idea of, like, you know, the Alien characters. I also would give probably a 5 out of 5 because it's the same exact thing. Like, you know, it's a ragtag group of people who have their own personalities and are all well written. The only difference is in this one, you get to see who these people actually are when things go sideways, and it's a little different from what Alien does. Obviously, they're still sticking together, but I think that's what makes this ragtag group of characters a lot more fun to watch in this movie. It's just watching how they actually interact with each other when no one can trust each other.
I agree, Jonathan.
Right on. So, like, yeah, you're like you already said, Tim. Like, there's not really much in the ways of growth for anybody in particular, really here. Like, you know, because you know. It all just kind of falls out in the end, really, with everything kind of blown to shit and everything else, you know, not really knowing what's really done at the end for sure. It kind of makes it kind of sad in that way because, like, you kind of wish that there's more to know at the end of the film.
I don't
never
like
really knowing for sure if the thing is dead. It kind of kills that part for me. So, I mean, I was at a 3. Okay. But the characters themselves we're pretty good for the most part. Man, there's some crazy other shit though that I can't wait to talk about. So I'll just leave it at that for this part.
I was a 3 too, and then I get it. So we're moving right along because now we're at the biggest category in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the biggest one?
Oh, absolutely! Editing and special effects.
I don't know. The next one, I don't know.
I thought music and sound design was next.
Oh, I skipped. Sorry. Yep, I'm bad. Music and sound design. Next one. This one is not the biggest one in the film. I'm jumping ahead. I'm getting excited because I want to talk about the special effects. So this, I love. All right. So unused music composed for this film by Ennio Morricone. I'm messing that up. So. Unused music that was made for this movie, he later used in Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight from 2015.
Oh,
that's kind of cool. Okay.
So the best part about this is Morricone's Thing score was nominated for a Razzie for the worst score, while his score for Hateful Eight won him an Oscar.
That's so funny.
What?
So that's just a little bit. That's a little. I get it because if
different
I'm
time,
honest,
different people.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and if I'm honest, the music to this movie is not. It's not something you think about as in like, oh, I need to get that soundtrack because there's not a lot to it. It is very minimalistic, and I really like that approach to it because it makes me feel like I'm trapped in Antarctica. The music sets the mood. I love the opening scene when they're hunting the husky, which at first you're like, why are they trying to kill a dog, you assholes? And then you get it. You're like, you guys are awful. But it opens with just these low, ominous tones, very a la The Shining, if I do say so. But good
comparison.
Yeah. And I like that because it's a contrast to some big bombastic score. I I also like that when things start to get tense, the musical beat echoes a heartbeat. We get a bum bum, bum bum, bum bum. I love that. The sound effects are fantastic. We talked about, so on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, we just noticed that for the original one, which comes out in a couple of days, you would see the wind blowing behind the characters, but you wouldn't hear it. And that is the opposite for this movie. They're running through the snow and you just hear the whoosh. So I love that attention to detail. And the sound when, I believe the character's name is Benix, when he first turns and his hand doesn't fully form all the way.
No, Bennings, yeah.
Bennings,
yeah. When he runs out into the snow and is on his knees and he just turns his head and that shriek sound comes out of him.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So there's so much from the squelching and squishing of the body parts that happens throughout this movie. The sounds of the thing. The music itself is a good accompaniment to the rest of the movie. So for the music, I'd give it a 3. You know, the music itself is a 3. However, the rest of this film, the way just the sounds of this film, from making you feel isolated and alone to just the creepy creature sounds, I bump it up to a 4. The creature, so I'm averaging, the sound effects would be a 5, the music would be a 3. I'm coming together on a 4 for the music and sound design because I do love it. But if you put the thing, actually, I might recognize the things, just, no, I'd confuse it with The Shinings. So I'm going to stick with a 4, but that's saying it is great. The music and sound design to this film is awesome.
Okay. I agree with a lot of that for sure. That one part though, man, when Mac and the other doctor dude and man, they're out investigating where the Norwegians came from their site.
I love that scene.
Through a lot of that, dude, I swear it sounds like there's this like air escaping kind of groaning sound in the background of everything. Did you guys notice that? Like, man, it's like, I know it's like the sound of the wind blowing through the burned out structures, but it sounded like this like low kind of groaning sound, like of a man who's dying still.
Oh,
you know,
I go back and check that.
I just thought it was like setting the creepy atmosphere of that.
Yeah, it just sounded like this. Like there's a lot of different low tones in like 2 different low tones through a couple different scenes where it just sounds like this is.
I need to double check.
I'll have to go back
kind
and
of
watch
dying
that.
groan kind of sound. It just like was tripping me out because like when they find that one body that's there, we'll talk about in special effects and whatever.
Fantastic.
And oh my god, like I was thinking it was that guy still alive, still dying slowly, but no, like the guy's straight up dead. So that kind of messed with me a little bit. I was like, oh man, holy cow. So that's one of the best things that I liked about the sound design in that. And then also the sound of the creature when it splits open in the dog kennel. And the tendrils start. You hear the whipping of the tendrils of everything. Just all the different sounds of like when the head's escaping and that tongue, like the tendril shoots out of the tongue, and you hear it like, whoosh, you know, and like grab and like pulling and sliding.
It's
so specific. The specific sound effects for those moments really just enhance it. Oh,
they did a great job with all the different kind of squelching sounds, like even doing like the autopsy of the bodies and all that stuff, man. Like just all of the gross visceral sounds that you could get from that. Like, it's like, they did a pretty good job on that. Other than that, like aside from the low tone 80s, like synth sounds that I dug, I sat mid-ground. I went 3 with it as well.
Okay. Oh, I want to mention, I forgot to mention it on mine. This was the first Carpenter movie that he did not compose the music himself.
Oh, wow. Really?
Okay.
Yeah. So this was the first time, like, everybody knows the Halloween theme, one of the most iconic themes ever. But this was the first one that he did not come back to do the music for.
Interesting. Yeah. So I gave mine a 4 out of 5 here. I think The Shining's actually a good comparison to this movie in the sense of why I brought it down to a 4. I agree. The sound effects really just take the cake for it. I think, Tim, you're pretty fair in your point. It's just like saying the music is pretty much a 3-ish for the most part. The sound effects take it to a whole nother level, I think. The only one reason I didn't give it a 5, which I think is totally fair, is just that it's not really a memorable like soundtrack, nor like it's not known for its sound effects. The sound effects definitely enhance what we're going to talk about next here. Yeah. But I think, 4-3 is probably fair, give or take. I do think that it sets a tone, specific, like we were talking about earlier, the setting. The music for me just really sets a tone for like where we're at. Like it almost complements the setting of the entire movie really, really well. Just being in the middle of Antarctica, just in these laboratories. I don't know, something about it just like felt right to me. So the music, I'll maybe give like a little bit more credit than Tim did, but I think it's fair to say that the sound effects push it over to a 4, but 3 is totally understandable as well.
All right.
Damn, now you guys make me want to change my score.
You can't.
I'm going to change my score.
This is all based off emotions, Jonathan. No logic.
Nope.
You guys. I like the point you guys make, though. So I'm willing to change my score.
You are.
And we just compared it to The Shining, and I'm thinking that both scores are meant to make you feel isolated. The Shining and The Thing. And so I appreciate that.
The only difference is The Shining's a little more memorable. I remember The Shining's opening thing every time.
And it was first.
And it shows because it's one of my favorite horror movies ever made.
It's one of the best horror movies ever.
It's so good. So good.
Okay, so before we jump into the next category, I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr. It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So let's dive into the next category. Editing and special effects. Here we go. Let's just, which scene is your favorite?
Oh,
you had to pick one. Which one is your favorite? Or which specific effect is your favorite?
Okay, I know which one a specific effect is my favorite. I know for sure.
What is it?
Okay, so it's when the one guy, the curly-haired big guy, after like Mac breaks in and has the dynamite, he's like, I'm going to blow us all to hell if you come near me. The doc that falls down, hits the wall, they put him on the table, and they bring the other doc over, and he's trying to like do the CPR, and he gets the paddles. Mm-hmm. He's checking him, nothing's happening, and he does that press down, and the chest cavity caves in, and teeth pop out from the ribs, and boom, and rip his arms off. Yep. And he freaks out, ah! And you see the arm stump sticking out of the mouth, and then the chest peels open, and then the tendrils start popping out and whipping. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's insane.
That was like one of my favorite effects, like one of my favorite moments of effects in the film.
Yeah.
Among many others, but that one was like, I love that one so much.
Bryce, if you could pick.
I was really trying not to pick the easy answer because I was trying to think of anything that's more memorable than that moment. It is that moment. Like there's no more icon. Of all the iconic scenes in horror in general, that one is probably the scene that even like brought people to the movie in the first place. It really is that great of a scene. It's phenomenal.
There's so much more to it beyond just that one.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That image killer.
Every transformation scene is nuts.
Yeah, you could even argue the dog scene, honestly.
Yeah, I almost went with that one. I was for a second, I was like, but I was like, no.
Almost got you.
So I will say the things I love. It's surprising. I do love that scene. I love every transformation scene in this movie. I love the frozen body at the Norwegian with the blood icicles off of him. I think that is like, it's not one of the puppetry pieces. It's not one of the moving complex scenes, but that is so uncomfortable. It's almost, it's disturbing to think about. Like, this guy just bled out to blood popsicles, and it looks really good. It looks so good.
And the throat slash too. Oh,
and it was
just
deep.
Wide gaping.
It was a deep
slash.
In case it wasn't clear, it's obviously 5 out of 5 for all of okay, cool. And if it's anything less, you're wrong.
Yes, exactly. There's only one answer for this one. And the other scene that's also really subtle that I think is just really disturbing and sets the mood is when they bring in the body for the autopsy, and you see the head is kind of like splitting, and it's just the subtle scenes of doing that autopsy on it and pulling it out. And he's like, well, these are all normal human body parts. And it all looks real uncomfortable and real disturbing. Which is why the film is considered one of the greatest special effects, makeup effects ever. They were done by Rob Bottin, who was only 22 when he made this movie.
Wow.
He was only 22 when he was doing this. The other like smaller things that are super cool is the title card where it burns away.
I was going to bring that up. I like that effect a lot.
So it's attempting to replicate, we'll see in the original film, it's attempting to replicate the original. So to create that, they have an animation cell with a thing written on it, placed behind a smoke-filled fish tank, which was covered in a plastic garbage bag. They lit the bag, creating the effect with that burning away and revealing the title.
Wow.
That's pretty sweet.
That's dope.
I think that's super cool. I love that that's a practical effect. It's easily a 5 for everybody on this one. It's
absolutely.
But the thing is, I was thinking, I was watching.
He's at it.
Yep. No, here it is. The thing is, you come for the special effects, but you stay for that paranoia.
Yep. You stay to see what happens.
Yeah.
One thing that I do got to point out, though, about the special effects that kind of bugs me back in relation to the sound design. It's such a stupid minimal thing, but it still, for some reason, caught my attention. At the beginning, when the Norwegians are flying and they're shooting after the dog, when you hear the shots, you don't see any fire from the muzzle brake. So you don't see the pop from the gun, the fire that pops from that when the round comes out. Like, you see no blast, no kind of action there when you're hearing the sound. And that bothered me for some reason. I was like,
what a film snob.
No, you brought that up. I actually put it in my notes, but I was like, I put gunshot but no muzzle flash during the opening husky hunt. And then I was like, you know what? I've never fired a gun like that, so I don't know if I would see the muzzle flash in a bright day. I don't. Is a muzzle flash something we're accustomed to seeing in movies as like an effect? I don't know. But I wrote that down too because it bothered me as well, Jonathan. I was like, this guy's just going like this, and then we get the sound of the shot. So that's something that I need somebody who has fired rifles to tell me about.
Yeah, man. But everything else though, man, was just rocking though. Even when the dog creature or for the thing was like splitting apart, like when the arm, that more humanoid claw arm came out, and that thing kind of jumped up and started grabbing onto the ceiling and shit. That was crazy. And then like it shot all of that goo all over the one dog that started to like eat it away.
I hated that
before
scene.
the tendrils got to it. I felt
part.
so bad for that dog, dude.
I'm literally watching it on Tim's screen right now. I'm just like, oh, it's so sad.
It's in the background, right?
It's just so sad.
Perfect timing. Man. Yes, that's amazing. So yes, viewers, if you look in the background, you can see it playing in the corner of Tim's screen.
It's so sad, but what that scene does is it does set the tone for the movie, and it shows that there's no mercy with this thing. So
not even the dogs are safe.
Oh man. Anyway.
Well, and then you find out. Wait. No, never mind. I'm not going there. Not going there.
Okay.
All right. So we covered the editing and special effects. Easily 5. So Bryce, you seem to really love the script.
Okay. Again, I'm gonna point back to what I said about the story and plot and the characters. Simplicity is king. That's something we got a lot with these older movies, and a lot in common, I should say. Same reason I love Alien so much as a horror movie and as a sci-fi film in general. I just we don't know what this thing is. We don't really know anything about its origins. We got a bunch of people who are coming together. They find this thing, and it just becomes a guess who basically for the whole movie. And the fact that they were able to go through this entire movie with this script and make very logical, conclusive decisions with these characters and not make me feel at any point like, oh, that was really stupid for the sake of a stupid horror movie moment where we can progress the story so that we can stretch this out for 2 hours. And I don't know how much I'll touch on it now, but even getting into the ending, which, the third act for me is kind of where, if anything, kind of falters a little bit, where I get a little bored, but then we get the finale and they're just sitting there. It's just and they're just well, guess we'll find out. It's there's very few horror movie guess who's like this, that just everything has a flow to it. None of the characters make any stupid or rash decisions. Like I said, even it was Blair, right? Even Blair, who was going against the entire his logic makes sense from beginning to end. You can't help but root for everyone because this thing is causing so much infighting, but everyone's making sense. You have to be careful. I love the scene where he's testing. Well, it was everyone's blood, right? With the fire. That was one of when I think of horror movie moments where they're trying to solve the mystery and figure out the weakness of the monster, that moment always sticks out to me because it's just one of those moments where the characters are being smart about it. They're taking some logical steps to figuring out what they can do to figure out who the thing is. And I like how the thing doesn't just lash out. It's waiting. It's patient about it. It's almost like it's waiting for the moment to strike because it knows if it goes too soon, it's kind of screwed. I will say the flamethrower, what happened to it again? It was it was wasn't lighting or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of fiddling with it, click, click.
Yeah, that was the only part of the script I was it's kind of convenient for the monster to get away. But that was the only moment in this script where I was that felt like a convenience for the sake of the monster to get away. Everything else, though, I feel has a very good foundation and doesn't compromise the characters nor the story for the sake of progressing it any further. It all goes together nicely. That's the only time where I was convenience for the sake of the monster escaping. I can understand it being lower than a 4, totally. But as for the sake of just the whole script being written, I thought it was a really well written and smart script with smart characters who made very logical decisions and didn't feel like stupid horror movie characters for the sake of being stupid horror movie characters.
Yeah. Jonathan, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So script was pretty cool. Blair overall, man, was just super awesome. The way they had him written,
yes.
And how he followed that whole scientific path of things. From his research, from the blood testing to test for chance of infection and him making his own conclusions, already knowing that they haven't been able to get a hold of anybody for 2 weeks via radio anyway, so they're very isolated. He realizes the potential that this, the danger levels could present for the entire world, and so they say, all right, well, got to make a decision, got to do some shit. And he goes for it. Everyone thinks he's losing his shit, but he's doing what he thinks is the most rational, best course to try and save the rest of the world, before this thing takes over, you know? And then he goes from like seeming like super crazy to being super chill, like just being very placid and like, okay, guys, I just want to come back in. This really sucks. You know, I'm sorry, whatever. Just let me come back in. Just get me the fuck out of here because I'm hearing weird shit, you know? And so you don't really know when he took over, but eventually they find out he was taken over. Even though you don't really know exactly when, considering they find that little hidden ship he's been building underneath the ice.
Yeah.
Like, how long did it take for that little space to be built and to gather all those materials? Like, what the hell? So you don't really know. So that was pretty amazing. Like, they set his character up like that. Even though you got Mac, who's always been they've always been the same from beginning to end. It's just he seems to get kind of darker in his conclusions towards the end of the film with what's going to happen, you know, while trying to maintain control of the situation. So like there's really a lot of good writing on the characters. But the rest of it was just kind of like whatever for some of the other guys. Like that whole part where they're testing the blood and was it Palmer, the stoner white guy? You know, he's like exposes himself as being one of the things. And then the other guy who like passed the test first, standing there instead of picking up his flamethrower and just burning the fuck out of the thing while it's jumping up and around. I was so pissed off about that. I was like, bro, you totally had so much of a clean shot to fire the fuck out of that thing, and you did nothing but stood there and look at it while it split its head open, did this whole transformation, and then bit you in the face, throwing you around the room. You had all this time you could have burnt the hell out of it, and you just did that, just stood there like a dumbass and took it. I was so mad about that.
So you just brought up, that's my favorite transformation in the movie. I love that because we have that super tense blood testing scene, and then it leads to a super satisfying body transformation. So I love that scene.
But yeah, that killed it on the script for me. It's just like, dude, like that just was a dumb way to write that part. But otherwise, the rest of it was so spot on with being all logical and scientific about what's going on and how to figure out how to get a grip on the situation. I thought that was great. Aside from the small defects, you know, it's whatever. 3. Yeah, I think it works for me. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to come right in the middle of you. Well, Bryce, what were you? 5?
4.
4? Okay. I'm a 4 too. Instead of you both hit the same reasons that I did, I'll just couple lines that I really liked and things that I really liked. I like that we took this story that could be very cold, is very cold, but I loved how early on it shows us how they pass the time. And I took that as a script element from him playing chess on a computer that must not be important because he destroys it immediately.
That's one of the
that's a lot of money for that year.
Scenes. Oh, so funny.
I love that scene, but from him doing that to the cook who's constantly roller skating everywhere, they're playing pool, they're watching reruns on VHS. I love that. Just like they're not just there to be scientists, they're also human beings who have downtime and need that fun, that relief. I love that attention to detail because I think one thing a lot of sci-fi horror can tend to do is be too cold and sterile and forget that our characters are human. Yep. So I put that in the script because I think that's an attention to detail element. I think it was Blair who was looking up on the computer and it said 27,000 hours to infect the world.
Yep.
So, and I did some math on that. It's 1,125 days or 3.08 years. So it wouldn't be a fast takeover, which in this case I think makes it utterly terrifying. Because it's going to be 3 years of fighting and body transformations and just insanity.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
then I thought that was chilling. A couple lines I liked. Early on, they ask McCreary, how can this thing do this? And McCreary says one of my favorite answers to this question of how is this happening? And he goes, I don't know. It's different than me. What do you want from me? And I'm like, yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, ask the doc over there. Ask him, you know, he's the scientist and shit.
Yeah,
you know?
I love that because I hate when people have all the answers for things they just discovered. So I love that line. I love the line, trust is a tough thing to come by these days. There's nothing special about it. I just like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide in an imitation. That's a great line. And then one of the lines that I thought was very subtle, very bleak, and I wrote that it was chilling, is when McCreary is recording and he says, nobody trusts anybody now. And that's fine. That sets the scene. But he finishes that with, and we're all very tired.
Yeah, that's a great line.
That is like, it takes, like, it's a stick of dynamite, like, is what that is. It's just a matter of time before things explode. With that, we're all very tired, because he says early on that he hasn't slept in 2 days. And this happens, it seems to happen in one night, one day-ish. But that just, when people get tired, they don't think rationally. So that's just a very small line that I think is utterly chilling. So I gave it a 4. I don't care for the ending all that much. I think this movie, after the blood test, is kind of rushed to a conclusion. Like, I think the blood test is the climax of the film. And then we're like, well, we got to wrap this up somehow. I do like the kind of like, well, we're going to see what happens to the ending. But I just think it's kind of clunky after the blood test. So I gave it a 4.
Okay, yeah. We'll see. Like I said, when you bring that up, the ending, though, how it seemed rushed, I agree with that. And it kind of left me unfulfilled at that end, like I was talking about earlier, because everything's blown to shit. You know, they're not going to survive because they're going to freeze to death eventually, unless the other thing attacks them and freezes it after, they've been assimilated. You don't really know if the creature has actually been completely destroyed, if the thing is really dead. It just leaves so many things up in the air, and it's just like, oh. But even though this kind of relates towards the acting next, Wilford Brimley, though, fucking Blair, when he's freaking out, destroying the radio room.
Just go right into it.
He's okay. Well, one of my favorite lines was him saying, "You don't understand. It wanted to be us," while he's freaking out and chopping things up. Like, that was really powerful line. While everyone thinks he's just losing his mind, and so like I said, he still was one of the best characters of the film, and it was one of the best written parts of it, because just everything seems so logical, even though it seems so crazy and maddening in the way he went about it. It just meant just how fierce that whole scene was of everyone trying to take him down. Max coming at him with the table. He's chopping into it with the axe, and everyone's bum rushed him, just beating the shit out of him. Like, everyone is freaked out. Massive adrenaline dump. Everyone's just like so high strung from the whole situation. And you got the one radio guy. He's just laying there bleeding from his head, just like, I give up. I'm about to fall out. I'm exhausted. There were some amazing performances that really came around in this, even though they all had their moments for the most part. It seemed like every one of these characters almost had like their big kind of drama moment between seeing how they got attacked, transformed, killed, or put down. It was crazy, man. Like Mac, that one scene where Clark's coming after him with the scalpel, and he's got his gun on Childs, and he's got it pointed at him. He's like, "I'll shoot you dead. Get with it." Clark comes at him. He just boom, pop. Dead right center, and you see you can't really tell mostly from expression. Everyone's so tense, but you see it in his eyes more than anything that he hates that he had to just do that. That he felt like that Clark gave him no choice. And
then you find out in the blood test.
Yeah, then they find out he gets vindicated in the blood test that he had not been assimilated. And it makes it crazy kind of figuring out what's going on, because you see that early in the movie when the dog goes into that one person's room, you don't know who's in there, but you see that shadow and the head turning, and then the scene fades out. Well, I guess it kind of goes towards direction, but whatever. Just how crazy it is in not knowing who's who. Everyone seemed to be realistic in their portrayal of how a person would be in that situation, super freaked out, super stressed, and eventually, after so many adrenaline dumps and being so tired and still not knowing what, having had so much destruction happen already throughout the entire situation, man, everyone like really delivered. I feel like I think a lot of the characters, like these actors, nailed their characters really hardcore. So I gave the acting a 5, dude. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, I like it.
What did I give the acting? I'm sleeping here. I lost my notes.
How dare you?
Wow.
How dare you?
I gave the acting. I gave the acting a 5 as well. I can't find any fault in any person in this. I can't ask for more. I think one of the things that really stands out for me is Kurt Russell. He's got range. He's got range. And I know this is like a lot of people love this for Kurt Russell. I remember my mom showing me like Disney movies of him in the 70s. You know, he was on TV and he seemed so innocent and he was fun and he was kind of a heartthrob back then. And then you see
him and Goldie Hawn and shit.
Yeah, you see this Kurt Russell and I'm like, that's a man. That's a dude. I like his portrayal in this film and I like his level-headedness and the way he comes across as, even when things go crazy and he is in an intense moment, he is level-headed. There's not a moment that I'm like, this guy's lost his mind. I'm decisive. Like, yes, he's decisive. He does it well. And I do like all those guys, the way they start to not trust each other. It's portrayed very well. I don't have a whole lot more to say on the acting. I just think everybody delivers in their scenes. They do a great job. Even some of the scenes, there's a couple scenes where their guys are like cowering on the floor because of something that happened. And it's never like, it's like a realistic, like, dude, I'm stopped for now. I'm freaked out. I'm just going to be here for a second. And it's convincing. So I was a 5 as well. They're good.
I was just looking at how many movies Kurt Russell is in. That man is in a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah, dude.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I was just going back to try to find some of those Disney ones, and I was like,
Fox and the Hound.
I can't find those. Fox and the Hound. He was on Hawaii Five-0.
Yep, he was on that one too. Tombstone, that's another one.
The Strongest Man in the World. I remember my mom showing me that one.
What was the one with him and Goldie Hawn where like she falls off the boat and loses her memory? And he's got like a family of kids and he's like a carpenter and like he like recovers her from the hospital and like makes her think that she's his wife. They did end up doing a remake of it that was supposed to be pretty messed up. I don't know.
That's right. I remember the remake.
Pretty messed
Overboard.
up.
Yes, Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a crazy good film.
What is it, 41st Dates or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Funny.
Bill Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore.
Classic.
Another amnesiac.
Yeah, literally.
He's got serious range.
Well, you usually see him in like a more of a goofy, kind of laughable kind of guy in comedy and a lot of sports, but then you see the serious side of his work. It's like, dang, dude, for real.
He's a good actor.
Yeah. And like, it's good to see that switch up here in the Thing because he's just stone cold, you know, in this one versus what you'd normally see with his other characters he portrays.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I'll keep mine pretty short because you guys hit on a lot of what I was going to say. I gave it a 4 out of 5. The only reason I did not give it a 5 out of 5 is because I think it's fair to say that for these actors, like none of these were like Oscar-worthy performances. I would even say it for Kurt Russell. I really liked his performance, and I'll say the same for all the characters. I liked everyone. Their acting tied in with the script made for super likable characters that were memorable, but in the grand scheme of things, they're, again, I hate going back to it, but like Alien, I remember those characters better than I remember these characters. There wasn't like, they all had their moment. It was great. They nailed it, but there was nothing that there was nothing I was going to remember. They weren't the ones I remembered. I remembered the Thing. I remember the monster in those moments. I don't remember the actual actors who like portrayed those characters in those moments. So while they're all great and do a phenomenal job, the only reason I docked it was just because I don't think that they themselves were the ones who were standing out in those moments. It was the monster doing what it was doing in that moment. That's what I think of. And that's probably more of just a me thing. I can totally understand where you guys come from on the 5s, honestly.
Well, you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Welcome to the average, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. So the direction is one that I've wanted to get into. Anybody want to go before me? Anybody have any particular things about
Is there a reason you wanted to get into it?
No,
you are, dude.
John Carpenter.
You know how I'm about direction, so you go right ahead.
I love. Yeah, this is Jonathan's favorite category.
Great.
I love in this one. Carpenter he mixes up his static shots, which we get quite a few of them, but he also has great use of movement with his camera through the film. But he also uses my least favorite lens multiple times to the best use that lens could ever be used. He uses the diopter lens, which is where you have two things in focus and a blurry line in the middle. He uses that multiple times in this movie, and every time that blurred line is hidden in shadow or darkness. And so it creates a dramatic scene, whereas most of the time, it takes me out of it because I think it looks real funky. But we have that scene when Fuchs suggests everyone prepare their own meals and eat out of cans. And McCreary's standing in the doorway and Fuchs is in front of the camera. And we can't see the diopter blur because it's in shadow. And I think that's just really smart. I don't like the diopter lens that much, but he uses it the best I have seen. I really like the way he does that. He also uses it again when they're hiding the scalpel behind their back, and we have the scalpel in focus, and we also have McCreary in focus.
I was wondering about those shots, about how they were still both so well in focus, even with those different ranges. So yeah, okay, that explains a lot.
He uses that diopter lens, and the blur is hidden between them, and it's just super smart of Carpenter. And to get on top of how he shot the special effects scenes, it's insane. To just the way he structured this movie, it would not be as memorable as it is without the talented hand behind it. He's on record. This is his favorite movie that he's made.
Wow.
This is his favorite film. So I'll get into more of that when we go to the cultural significance, but this is his favorite. So I gave the direction on this a 5 because I think he absolutely delivers from the big open beginning, lots of exterior shots, even though it's a soundstage, which I thought was amazing. I'm pretty sure the helicopter stuff is actual helicopter stuff, but the base is a soundstage that they cranked the AC up or down, depending on how you want to look at it, to 40 degrees to make it realistic. I mean, Antarctica is colder than 40, but
well, they're saying at one scene, like, it's going to be negative 40 outside or something at one point, I think they said.
Yeah. So I think that's a really cool way to do it. It looks great. So I gave him a 5 on this.
Okay.
Jonathan?
Would you like to go?
You can go, too.
No, you go right ahead.
Okay, I can go.
So you go right ahead, please.
No, I was going to keep it again. I was going to keep this pretty simple, but again, not going to overthink this too much. It's a 5 out of 5. I think I have IMDb pulled up here. It just helps with remembering actors' names and who like correlates with who. But like, I was just kind of looking through the photo set pieces, and like, there's just so many good uses of the lighting in this movie that go hand in hand with everything we've been saying about like setting the tone of the movie. Some of my favorite like moments that feel that in my view prepares you for the end of the movie are those moments when it's just them sitting together after something has happened and they're just discussing it, and the lighting's dim. You get some like one-off shots of characters, and like there's clearly like a light like shooting up at them, but it's like dark over them. It's just kind of like this. It's almost like this darkness just closing in like very slowly, and it even shows as they get to the end of the movie where they're getting into when they're in the that one area where it's like just total darkness and it's going red and everything. It's like it's almost I viewed that as kind of a symbolic way of showing like the thing it's everywhere. It's going to get you eventually. It's just slowly closing in on you, and it's just such a beautiful movie to look at. The shots of the creature. I liked how, I don't know, there's some movies where like it works to not show everything, and then some of them just show too much also. This one's kind of a weird in between where it almost fits perfectly. It shows just enough and knows when not to show some stuff as well. I feel like I don't know how much more to put into that, because maybe I'm just overthinking that. I feel like he knows when to show the creature, when to show the reaction of the people. The cuts are very nicely timed. You spend enough time to get the horror and the emotions from these characters as these things are happening, and sit with them in it. And again, this goes right back into the script, the music and sound design. It just helps just further drive the point home of just the just the danger, the stakes that are involved here in these moments. I'm with you. Didn't want to get too much into it, but yeah, it's just perfect. Honestly, he's a legend. Legend.
Okay. I liked like early on in the film, like after the dog arrives and like the Norwegians are dead, where he gets those quiet transition shots from like this one room's doorway to the hallway, to the rec room, to the rest of everything. I like how he kind of played that out, that quietness, that solitude, everyone doing their own thing and just everyone being unsuspecting. And then that dog finally walking into that room and you seeing that shadow and then fade to the next shot. You know, I thought that was a great little, set right there. It was a good setup. The way they transitioned through the rooms, when they're researching or where they're investigating the Norwegians' base. And then you talking about the whole soundstage thing, man. Like, I keep thinking back to when they find the spaceship, and it looks like a painting. To me, the spaceship looked like a painting.
But I love
when you
that.
see them looking, it just looked like a painting. I'm like, okay, all right, that's a painting.
I love that. That's painting. I agree. It is one of the weaker shots in the film when you see them like trying to shimmy down. I'm like, But I also, there's something so much more visceral about a painting than CGIing something in there and green screening it. I appreciate that more. I'm not going to say it's better. I think they're both like take you out of it, but I appreciate the painting. They hired somebody to paint that. And I love that.
But I get it. It's cool. It is a very great shot when they come upon and you see the entirety of the ship and how far they've dug down into it. Then you see what they built for like their little ice ledge that they're climbing down from. But then when they're on the ground walking in, it just looks like more painted ship set to me. And I'm just like,
that's totally fair, honestly.
I totally I can understand how it passes though, because it's kind of bare bones, because you're in a super white out environment. It doesn't have to be bright and detailed.
In the grand
really hard to
scheme
see
of the
anyway
movie.
And all that, So I mean, it's fine, but I was just like, yeah, that's painting. But the rest of it's cool though, man. Like, let's see what else. Yeah, I don't know. I gave it 3.
Whoa! You gave John Carpenter a 3? But excuse me?
It's you.
Obviously, I'm not great at this topic.
No, clearly not. I don't know who let you on this episode. Oh my gosh.
He is on record stating the direction category is his least favorite.
Okay,
I don't know really how to explain it in the correct way that makes it sound good. I've always struggled with this category. So,
all right,
yes, boo me. That's okay.
We'll dive into.
I'll take it.
All right, cultural significance. All right, I have a paragraph for this.
Oh,
so
okay.
I said this is John Carpenter's favorite movie, and that being said, this movie had negative reception when it opened, and it was a box office bomb, and he took it very personally. He took it pretty hard. So not only was it bombed, it was panned by the critics for its gory effects, tone, and its characters. Vincent Canby called it too phony looking to be disgusting. It qualifies only as junk. Another critic wrote that it was hard to tell who's being attacked and hard to care. Roger Ebert was disappointed by the superficial characterizations and the implausible behavior.
Bullshit.
And dismissed the film as nothing more than an Alien knockoff.
Wow.
He must have never grew up in like tense situations where like a lot of dudes where they think about fight situations and what you would do and how to get out of it and just imaginary shit. He must not have had a lot of those situations in life or watched a lot of movies that would like, inspire those kind of like daydream weird shits, you know?
Wow. Yeah, he must have never had the fight or flight instinct kicked up.
Dude, what the hell?
But what really upset Carpenter was the director of the original Thing from Another World denounced this version, saying, if you want blood, go to the slaughterhouse. Ooh. All in all, it's a terrific commercial for J&B Scotch.
What the okay, that's a good jab on that part, though. That is funny. Rude, but man, that last part's funny as fuck.
That is...
So that's harsh, and that Carpenter took that hard. So, and I would too. The director of the original film says that would be tough. Oof. So, in response to the commercial bombing of the film, the studio canceled a multi-picture deal they had with Carpenter, who has since noted that his career would have been very different if this film had been successful.
Golly. Didn't only make like $5 million more than what they like needed for production or something like that?
It was, I didn't look at the budget. I just know that it was a bomb at the time. It nearly tanked his career, which is surprising. He has now been immensely relieved that it has such a cult success following the home video release of it. It's just grown in popularity to now be considered one of the greatest horror films ever made.
Dang.
So
that was,
jeez.
There's 15 million estimated gross worldwide, 20,600 plus.
Yeah. And so I did read that this was also one of the most expensive horror movies made at that time. So this had a budget of 15 million. And they were, most horror movies, for instance, Friday the 13th was only a couple years before this, had a budget of like 700,000. So this was a time period where horror, well, this is how it should be always. Horror movies have a smaller budget and contain their story and bring in tons of bucks. And so they gave him a big budget. It shows. I think it looks fantastic. But it didn't get the return the studio had hoped for. So all of that, it's now immensely popular among the horror community. It's popular among the sci-fi horror community. Like I said, it's considered one of the greatest horror films ever. I have to say it's a 4, and that's probably too high because looking at the cultural, like it by every measure, it tanked. It nearly destroyed his career, didn't bring in any money, was reviled at the time, which would be a low score. But since then, I bring it up because it has earned its place in the history of cinema. So I got to give it a 4 for that. I got to give it a 4. But this is like the horror movie comeback story that I love. Like it was reviled at its release and now it's adored. So I love to hear that. I love to hear it. But that's why I gave it a 4.
Okay. You make some awesome points on it, but I don't really see reference to it all that much. In much of anything. Maybe it's just because I don't like watch out and a bunch of different stuff. I don't know. But I mean, I hear about it from time to time in like stuff I see in online media, but I don't really see much about it otherwise than that. It's an amazing film. It's got its place there, and it's being kind of like an iconic film and being one of like John Carpenter's most famous, and most favorite as well as famous. But I don't really think about it much. I don't really have any thoughts about like cultural significance. I mean, just aside from like how it shows like the crazy shit you can do with the practical effects and what they were doing with some of like the more computer generated stuff that you see in certain scenes with the head transformation and some other stuff. But I don't know. I didn't really have too much of a feeling on this one for some odd reason. I don't know. It just didn't really hit me like it does with some other films when it comes to it factor. So I scored it on a 3.
I think that's fair.
You sound like you struggled to say that.
No, I didn't.
He was like, he was struggling.
I'm disappointed.
I agree. That's how
I'm gonna my mouth a little bit.
Well, like I said, technically it should be like a 2 because when it was released, it was not popular at all. But since then, I'm probably being generous with 5 or with 4 because of its benchmark as like practical effects. I don't want to say king, but it's a top 10 practical effects movie. So that's where I'm probably being a little generous for it because I'm a sucker for those practical effects.
All right, let me tell you why you both of y'all are wrong on this one. All right.
We're going to get to our new one.
5 out of 5. All right. No question.
You're wrong.
5 out of 5. All right.
Okay.
So, yeah, sure. Commercial failure when it first came out. Totally ruined his career. But let me ask you guys this. And take us out of the conversation. We're just talking general here. We talk about John Carpenter movies. Outside of Halloween, what do we talk about? We talk about The Thing. The Thing comes up.
No.
Okay. So funny. I figured
I think it was his vampire movie that he did.
The vampire.
Oh, you do? You like that one?
Yeah, is what I think John Carpenter. I don't think of The Thing. I think more in reference to the vampire movie he did. I can't remember the name of it offhand, though.
Okay. In horror circles, though, you can't talk about iconic horror movies without talking about The Thing, especially when it's John Carpenter. Like The Thing, whether we think about it or not, in general, in a horror movie conversation, The Thing always comes up, period, point blank. Like, it's that significant of a movie for people. And again, I will point back to, even though this thing was a commercial failure at the end of time, he got destroyed by everyone, including the original director. My man, Mr. Carpenter, had the final laugh because there are men in this conversation right now who did not even know that this was a remake of the original movie when first coming across it.
That's true.
5 out of 5. Case in point, it is one of the most iconic horror movies ever made. It has stood the test of time, and at the end of the day, Mr. John Carpenter got the last laugh because we're here talking about this movie and not the original.
We'll talk about the original in 6 days.
No, sorry. In the sense of this is the one. Right. This is the one that stands out, not the original one.
You make a compelling argument, sir.
So,
are you talking about not Prince of Darkness, Jonathan? Is it Village of the Damned? Is that the vampire one?
Maybe.
No, Village of the Damned is Alien Children. He has a movie that's just called Vampires.
He has a lot of shorts, apparently.
From 98.
A lot of Halloween movies.
Right, yeah.
Starring James Woods.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
James Woods. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got... I was just reminded, the movie he did right before this, Escape from New York, and then he did The Fog. I love
iconic.
The Fog.
Yep.
I love that.
I forgot about Escape from New York. That was fucking badass too.
Yeah.
No,
He's
true.
got a great, all of his movies are good. All right, so our final, onto enjoyment. How much do we enjoy this? Who wants to, anybody dying to go?
Okay. Yeah, dude, for me, it was an 8. I thought I liked this film a lot. This is definitely a movie I would like to watch again. Well, I did. I watched it twice. Since we didn't do anything last night, I went ahead and I watched it again, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty fucking good movie. It's pretty good. It's kind of sours me at the end when it just fades out with Mac and Childs just sitting there, fucking drinking on their JB's commercial, whiskey and shit, But I still, all right. I still enjoyed the film. Like I said, there was enough action and then quiet spacing between and things, the way they paced it out, and the raise and intensity as the story continued on till you finally hit that major sense of, well, it's all over at the end. Well, we're either screwed or hopefully they succeeded. Leaves you wondering what. So I thought it kicked ass. I feel like an 8's a pretty rad place to be for me.
I'm an 8 too, so I'm right there with you. I greatly enjoyed this movie. Like I said at the beginning, I have this weird thing with sci-fi horror. It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it sometimes. So this is one of those movies. It's one of the top sci-fi horror films. So when I'm in the mood for it, I'll watch this, or if I'm in the mood for amazing practical effects, or the ice cold isolation of this movie is the thing that stands out to me. Like, the horror setting in Antarctica is unique and fantastic. So those are the things that would make me return to this film. I don't go to sci-fi horror. It's not my go-to thing, but it's undeniable that this movie is fantastic. So that's where I'm at an 8. Will I watch it 2 days in a row? Yes. Will I put it on again immediately, which is my definition of 10? No. I probably won't restart it immediately, but I would watch it 2 days in a row. So that's where I'm at, 8. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I'm basically right with you guys. 9 out of 10 for me. Something about these old horror movies, man, made in the 80s and 90s. They just... we don't get horror movies quite like these anymore, honestly. We haven't, at least since, I don't know, like...
Since the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, maybe the Conjuring movies, honestly. I'm trying to think, honestly.
Dude, like the early Leprechaun films. What's the one with what's the one with the male witch guy? Was it just saw it the other day, commercial on it.
Man witch guy?
The man
No. Oh, God, was it played by tall blonde dude? God dang it.
There's a lot of tall blonde dudes.
Witchcraft, something other. Oh, damn it, man. Now I can't remember. No, I saw it on Tubi the other day, and I saved it in my list, and now I can't remember what it was.
Tubi is the plethora.
Fail.
Plethora.
Fail.
Fantastic.
No, this movie is fantastic. There was honestly maybe just like one part where like I kind of felt like it drug a little bit, and like outside that one part where they're testing the blood, there's a little bit of a convenience right in for the monster to get away. Outside of those couple little moments, I think it's almost close to perfection of a movie, and I love the ending. I think it goes right back to the beginning and just kind of, you know, they hit their climax, they thought they had it beat, and then just brings you right back to square one, where it's like, well, guess we'll just find. There's so few movies that do a sad ending well, and I mean like where it leaves you with chills down running through your body, like.
Now they are the Norwegians.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think it's basically almost perfect movie at that point. Like outside of Alien, when it comes to sci-fi horror, this is up there, like top 3 maybe. I have to look through my list, but it's really, really good.
All right, you guys have your final scores?
I do.
I can add mine up.
With my one score change consideration, I am at a 38.
38. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Bryce, do you have yours?
I'm adding. Give me 5 seconds.
Oh, here. I can.
10, 14, 19, 23,
Check
27, 32, 37, 48? Is that right?
I had 46.
Sorry, 40. Yeah, I was doing right. 46. That sounds right.
Okay.
Yep, so 46.
So 46, 38, and I am a 43 on this one. So if we divide that between the three of us, that puts us at a 42.3. I'm going to round that down to a 40.
Whoa, hold on there.
That's how it works.
Let's round that sucker up. Come on.
That's not how that works.
Just listen. Come on.
Round.
Just trust me. This movie's worth it, kids. All right.
All right. I'll go 4.5. So a 45 or a since people I've heard are confused by the 45 out of 50, that means 4.5 stars out of 5 is what that means.
It's basically worth your time. All right.
Yep. So breaking that down, either way, whether we round it down to 42 or to 45, they're both in the amazing category. This is most likely an amazing category for a social situation, or an amazing movie for a social situation. So there we have it. That is our remake. Yeah.
I found it. The actor I'm thinking of, Julian Sands, tall British dude, blonde hair. The movies were Warlock.
Oh, I've heard of
Warlock movies.
I haven't seen
where he's like
those,
this male witch, and like, oh my gosh, dude, Super awesome. Those are like late 80s, early 90s.
Gotcha.
That's what I was trying to think. I'm sorry it took me so long to grab that. But yes.
That to the season 3 list?
Yes, Julian Sands, dude, Warlock. Warlock 2, the second one specifically, I like a lot better than the first, but still both awesome movies. I think there was like 3 or 4 of them. But
I don't know why that made me think of Wishmaster. I think it's a W title in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, Wishmaster was cool too. I think there's like 3 or 4 of those.
He's got to work on that season 3 list. All right, so that's it for the remake of The Thing. And then in 6 days, we will talk about the original Thing, the one that very few people know exists. Yeah, shout out to your artist.
Yes, Brian Fife, Kansas City. Check this dude out. He's got some amazing art. You can catch him at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo that travels countrywide.
That is awesome. That. I think that was actually just in Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were here in Dallas earlier this year.
Okay.
But yeah, they come here every year. And they still come to Chicago, I think.
That's cool. All right, so if you're following along, if you made the cocktail, we want to see a picture of it. Post that on social media. Tag us. I want to know how it tastes. So let us know. If you watch the movie with us, submit your score. We have 3 different ways to do it. You can do it through the Google link. We have that add yours thing now on Instagram, so you can add yours and go through and score it yourself, share it to your story. You can do it that way, but we're comparing them all. So in 6 days, we will compare this one to the original and see which one's better. I think we know for this movie. We've been surprised by some others, but this is the one that very few people know the original exists. Will it surprise us? Probably. Will it be better than this? Will it be better than this one? I don't know. So we'll find out. Tomorrow, we are talking 2006's Black Christmas. It's going to be a wild ride.